The war between humans and the Drake clans had lasted for many long years, and it had left towns, forests, and entire valleys broken and empty. Smoke still rose from faraway hills, and the sky carried a dull gray color that never seemed to clear. In the middle of all this damage stood a small human field station made of metal sheets, old lights, and patched walls. It was not strong or impressive, but it was the only safe place for miles. Inside this station worked Ethan Cole, a human medic who had seen far too much pain. He was young, but the war had aged him quickly. His eyes always looked tired, and his hands moved slowly, not because he lacked skill, but because he had not rested properly for days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw memories of battles, injured people, and friends he could not save. Ethan sat at a small table with several medical packs scattered around him. He carefully checked each one, making sure nothing was missing. He worked in silence, listening to the soft hum of the old lights and the faint sounds of people walking through the hall. The wind outside pushed against the thin walls, carrying the distant echo of explosions, but Ethan tried to ignore it. He had learned to keep his focus on the moment in front of him. He reached for a roll of bandages and placed it gently into a kit. His hands trembled for a moment, and he sighed. "I just need one quiet day," he whispered to himself. But even as he said it, he knew it would not happen. Quiet days had become rare, almost impossible. The door to the room opened, and a young soldier named Ben walked in with a clipboard. His uniform was dusty, and his boots left small marks on the floor. "Medic Cole, Command wants an update on supply levels," Ben said. Ethan nodded without looking up. "Tell them we have enough for 2 more days. Maybe 3 if we're careful." Ben wrote this down quickly. "You need anything? Food? Rest?" he asked. Ethan gave a weak smile. "Rest would be nice, but you know how it is." "Yeah," Ben said softly. "I'll bring you something warm to eat." "Thanks," Ethan replied. Ben left, and Ethan was alone again with his thoughts. He rubbed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. He wished for silence, for peace, for even one moment without fear. But the war had taken those things long ago. As he reached for another medical pack, the station alarm suddenly rang out. The loud, sharp sound cut through the air and made Ethan jump. He stood up quickly, heart pounding. Alarms meant only one thing. Someone was hurt or something was wrong. Within seconds, several soldiers rushed down the hallway. Ethan stepped out of his room and saw 2 of them carrying something wrapped in a torn blanket. The blanket dripped with mud and small drops of bright red blood. "Put them on the table," Ethan ordered, running ahead. The soldiers laid the small bundle onto the medical bed. Ethan quickly pulled the blanket aside, and then he froze. Inside the blanket was not a human. It was a small creature covered in dark green scales. Its wings were small and folded tightly. Its tiny claws shook, and its round golden eyes were full of fear and pain. It was a young dragon child. "Where did you find him?" Ethan asked, unable to look away. "Near the old river bridge," one soldier replied. "He was alone, crying. We didn't see any adults around." Ethan felt a strange mix of fear and sadness. He had never seen a dragon this close before, especially not a young one. Even a small dragon could be dangerous if it panicked. But this child did not look dangerous. He looked terrified. Ethan slowly reached out a hand, moving very carefully. "It's all right," he said softly, speaking as if to a scared human child. "I won't hurt you. You're safe here." The little dragon whimpered and curled tighter into the blanket. The sound was soft but full of pain. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. "He's injured," Ethan said to the soldiers. "A cut on the side. Not deep, but untreated. He needs help." One soldier stepped back nervously. "What if he screams? What if more dragons come?" Ethan shook his head. "He's hurt, and he's alone. That's all that matters right now." He carefully cleaned the wound, making sure not to move too fast. The dragon child flinched but did not resist. Ethan kept whispering calm words, trying to comfort him. Minutes passed quietly. "There," Ethan said softly. "It's okay now. You're safe." The child looked up at him with trembling eyes. In that moment, Ethan felt something change. He didn't know what it meant yet, but he could feel it. This was no ordinary rescue. This was the beginning of something much bigger. The small medical room felt tense and quiet after the soldiers left. Ethan remained beside the young dragon, watching the child breathe in short, shaky breaths. The wound was clean now, and the bleeding had stopped, but the fear in the creature's eyes had not faded. Ethan could feel it like a small weight pressing on the air around them. He pulled a metal stool closer and sat down slowly, not wanting to startle the child again. The dragon's wings twitched slightly each time a new sound echoed through the station. He kept the blanket around himself, claws clutching the edges as if it were a shield. "You're all right," Ethan said gently. "No one here will hurt you, I promise." The dragon child did not answer, but his trembling slowed just a little. For a moment, Ethan allowed himself to breathe. He had treated injured humans, aliens, and even rare creatures before, but a young dragon was different. Dragons were powerful, feared, respected, and often misunderstood. Even a dragon hatchling had sharp claws and instinctive strength. But looking at this child now, Ethan saw none of that danger. He saw a lost, hurt, lonely creature who needed help. The door opened again, and Captain Laura Briggs stepped inside. Her boots clicked softly on the floor. She was calm but alert, her eyes sharp as she studied the scene. "Cole," she said quietly. "I heard the patrol brought something in." Ethan nodded. "A dragon child. He's scared and injured. I patched him up." Laura stepped closer, keeping a safe distance. The dragon shrank back against the bed, watching her. "He's young," Laura said softly. "Too young to be out here alone." "I know," Ethan replied. "The patrol said they found him near the bridge. No signs of adults." Laura crossed her arms. "You understand the risk, right? If the Drake clans find out we have one of their children, especially a wounded one, it could become a serious problem." Ethan looked down at the dragon. "What was I supposed to do? Leave him there? He would have died." Laura let out a long breath. She wasn't angry, just concerned. "I know you did the right thing, but command needs to be informed. And they might not make the same decision you did." Ethan felt a cold feeling settle in his stomach. He knew she was right. Higher command often saw situations like this as opportunities or threats, not living beings. "For now," Laura continued, "keep him calm, keep him quiet. I'll handle the first report and try to delay any orders. The longer we keep this controlled, the better." Ethan nodded. "Thank you." Laura gave a small nod in return and left the room. The dragon child watched the door for a long moment before slowly turning his head back toward Ethan. Ethan spoke gently, careful with every word. "She's not going to hurt you. None of us will. We just need time to figure things out." The dragon blinked, golden eyes full of confusion and fear. Ethan stood up and walked to a small storage cabinet. He opened it quietly and took out a canteen of water and a small bowl. He poured the water into the bowl and placed it near the child. "Here," he said softly. "You should drink something. It'll help you feel better." The dragon stared at the bowl for a long moment, unsure. "It's safe," Ethan assured him. Slowly, the child lowered his head and took a small sip. Then another, and another. Ethan smiled faintly. It was the first sign of trust. "Good," Ethan whispered. "That's good." He sat back down, staying close but not too close. The dragon lifted his head again. His small chest rose and fell quickly, still troubled. "Can you understand me?" Ethan asked softly. The dragon hesitated. He did not speak, but he gave the smallest nod. Ethan's heart tightened. That nod meant everything. "I'm Ethan," he said, touching his own chest gently. He waited. Slowly, the child lifted one trembling claw and touched his own chest. Ethan watched closely. "Do you have a name?" Ethan asked. The dragon dropped his gaze, eyes softening. He did not speak, but his body language showed sadness. Deep sadness. "You don't have to tell me yet," Ethan said. "It's okay. We have time." He reached for a small towel and dampened it with clean water. Gently, very carefully, he wiped the dirt from the dragon's face and wings. The child flinched at first, but then relaxed into the touch. Minutes passed quietly. Suddenly, a soldier outside shouted something, and the dragon tensed in fear. Ethan placed a calming hand near the dragon's shoulder. Not touching, but close enough to show safety. "You're okay," Ethan whispered. "You're safe here. I'm here." The dragon stared into Ethan's eyes, and even though he did not speak, Ethan felt they were beginning to understand each other. It was the first small step toward a bond neither of them expected. Ethan Cole stayed beside the dragon child for hours, keeping him calm and quiet. The creature, still wrapped in a soft blanket, seemed to trust him more with every small movement. Ethan knew that any sudden sound or movement could frighten the child again. So he worked slowly, carefully, making sure the dragon's breathing stayed steady and his body relaxed. The station was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery and the distant echoes of the battlefield. Ethan glanced at a small clock on the wall. Hours had passed since the patrol had brought the dragon in. He had lost track of time, focused only on the little life before him. As Ethan was adjusting the blanket, the door opened. Captain Laura Briggs stepped in quietly, her expression serious but not angry. She looked at the dragon, then at Ethan and finally spoke. "Cole," she said softly, "this is bigger than you think. Command needs to know. A dragon child like this, they might see it as a tool, a weapon, or a message." Ethan shook his head. "All he is hurt and alone. That's all I see." Laura studied him, her eyes softening a little. "I know, but the world outside doesn't see it that way. People will try to control him, to use him. You need to be ready for that." Ethan nodded. He understood the weight of her words. Even with the best intentions, humans often acted selfishly when something extraordinary appeared. "I'll keep him safe," Ethan said firmly. Laura gave a slight nod. "Then we work together. For now, just keep him calm and quiet. Don't let anyone else near him unless it's necessary." She turned and left, leaving Ethan alone again with the dragon child. Ethan exhaled slowly and returned to the little creature, who had been watching Laura leave. The dragon shivered slightly. "Don't worry," Ethan whispered. "She won't hurt you. I won't let anyone hurt you." The dragon's golden eyes blinked slowly, a small sign of trust. Ethan moved to a small cabinet and got some water and soft bread. He offered it to the dragon child. At first, the child hesitated, then sniffed the bread, and finally took a small bite. Ethan smiled faintly. It was progress. "Good," he whispered. "You're doing great." As the dragon ate, Ethan thought about the child's family. Were they alive? Were they looking for him? The war had torn many families apart on both sides, human and dragon alike. Ethan felt a pang of sadness for what the child had endured. Hours passed. The child's hunger sated. He curled up under the blanket again. Ethan kept his eyes on him, listening to every tiny sound. The fear had not disappeared completely, but it had lessened. Suddenly, a faint sound caught Ethan's attention. A soft whimper. He froze. The dragon child looked up at him, trembling. Ethan knelt beside him, keeping his voice soft. "It's okay," he said gently. "You're safe. I'm here." The child's small claws twitched as he reached out toward Ethan, barely touching his sleeve. Ethan's chest tightened. The connection was small, fragile, but it was there. Then, for the first time, the dragon spoke, barely audible. "Cold." Ethan froze completely. He looked down at the small creature. The child's lips moved, forming a word, and it was unmistakably human. "Did you just speak?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. The child blinked and nodded slightly, eyes wide with fear. Ethan swallowed hard, trying to process what was happening. A dragon, a child, speaking human words. It was impossible, yet it was real. He felt a shiver run down his spine. The dragon was not just a creature in need of care. He was intelligent, aware, and perhaps even able to communicate fully if he could trust someone. "You can talk?" Ethan whispered, kneeling closer. "It's okay. You're safe with me. I won't hurt you." The dragon child whimpered softly, relaxing a little under Ethan's calm presence. Ethan reached out gently, letting the child rest his tiny claw in Ethan's hand. Hours seemed to pass differently now. Every small movement, every blink, every sigh mattered. Ethan realized that he was no longer just a medic treating a wound. He was the bridge between two worlds, human and dragon, and the responsibility weighed heavily on him. He sat there, hand holding the dragon's claw, whispering softly. He didn't know what the future held, but for now they had each other. And that was enough. Night fell over the field station, bringing with it a quiet that felt heavy and still. Outside, the wind whispered through the broken metal walls, carrying faint echoes of distant battles. Inside, Ethan Cole remained awake beside the small dragon child, watching him breathe. The creature's small chest rose and fell rapidly, a rhythm of fear and exhaustion. Ethan gently adjusted the blanket over the dragon, careful not to startle him. The little wings twitched every now and then, and his small claws clutched the soft fabric tightly. Ethan sighed quietly. He had never expected to spend a night like this, sitting next to a creature that could be both dangerous and miraculous at the same time. He thought about the child's family. Were they alive, searching for him, or had the war taken them too? The uncertainty made the pit in Ethan's stomach grow heavier. As he reached for a small towel to wipe the child's face again, he heard a faint, shaky sound. It was soft, almost a whisper. "Cold." Ethan froze in his seat, his heart skipping a beat. He turned slowly toward the small dragon. The golden eyes looked up at him, wet with tears, and the word had come from the child's lips. You can speak?" Ethan asked in a trembling voice. The dragon nodded weakly, barely lifting his head. Ethan's mind raced. He had treated humans, aliens, and even some rare creatures, but none had ever spoken human words before. A talking dragon child was something entirely different, something extraordinary. He swallowed hard, steadying his breath. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe here. I won't let anything hurt you." The child whimpered softly but did not cry out further. Ethan reached out carefully, his hand hovering near the small creature. "Do you want something to drink?" he asked gently. The dragon looked down for a moment, then slowly nodded. Ethan poured some water into a small bowl and placed it near the child. The dragon sniffed it, then took a tiny sip, his movements hesitant but deliberate. Ethan smiled faintly. This was the first sign of real trust. "Good," he whispered. "See? It's safe." He sat back on the stool, watching the small creature closely. The child's body gradually relaxed, wings folding neatly against his sides. Ethan realized that something had shifted. The initial fear was beginning to give way to cautious curiosity. He spoke softly, introducing himself once again. "I'm Ethan. What's your name?" The child hesitated, looking at Ethan with uncertain eyes. Finally, in a quiet, trembling voice, he said, "Sorin." Ethan nodded, a small smile forming. "Sorin, that's a good name. You're safe here, Sorin. I'll take care of you." Sorin blinked, golden eyes glimmering in the dim light. Ethan could feel the fragile trust between them strengthening. He knew that in a world torn apart by war, moments like this were rare and precious. Outside, the wind howled through the station, carrying distant explosions and the sounds of the battlefield. But inside, in this small room, there was a fragile peace. Ethan stayed close to Sorin, whispering soft words, ensuring that the child felt protected and understood. He realized then that the night would be long, and the war outside would not stop, but for now they had a small haven. And in that moment, the exhaustion of war, the fear, and the uncertainty all felt a little lighter, shared between a weary human and a talking dragon child. Early morning light filtered through the small cracks in the field station walls. Ethan Cole remained seated beside Sorin, the young dragon child, keeping watch. The child slept peacefully for the first time since arriving, his breathing calm and steady. Ethan felt a small relief wash over him, though he knew the outside world was still dangerous. Captain Laura Briggs entered the room quietly, careful not to disturb the fragile peace. She studied the sleeping dragon child and then looked at Ethan with a mixture of awe and concern. "He spoke during the night," Ethan whispered almost to himself. "He can talk." Laura's eyes widened. "He spoke?" she repeated softly. "That changes everything. If Command learns this, they might want to take him, study him, or use him as leverage." Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "He's just a child. He's scared. He doesn't deserve to be used." Laura sighed, crossing her arms. "I know, but we need to think about what happens if someone else finds out. The Drake clans could be watching. Other units will hear the rumors. We have to protect him." Ethan looked down at Sorin, who stirred slightly in his sleep. "I'll keep him safe. No one will hurt him while I'm here." Laura gave a small nod, her expression softening. "Then we work together. I'll try to manage the reporting and keep this quiet for now. But we need a plan if things escalate." Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the responsibility settle heavier on his shoulders. He had never imagined being responsible for a creature like this, but now there was no choice. Sorin depended on him. He knelt beside the dragon child and gently adjusted the blanket around him. Sorin stirred, blinking sleepily, his golden eyes looking up at Ethan. "You're safe," Ethan whispered. "I'm here, and no one will hurt you." Sorin's small claws twitched, and he let out a soft sigh. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. This small sign of trust was more important than anything else he had done in the war. He fetched a small bowl of warm water and some soft bread, placing it near Sorin. The child looked at it, then up at Ethan. With careful hesitation, he took a tiny bite and a sip of water. Ethan smiled faintly, proud of the small progress. "Good job," he said softly. "See? It's safe. You're doing well." They sat together for hours in quiet companionship. Ethan spoke in low, calming tones, telling Sorin simple stories about the world outside, about humans, about small peaceful moments that had survived the war. Sorin listened, his eyes wide, absorbing each word, sometimes blinking sleepily. Ethan thought about the future. Command might try to take Sorin. Enemies might come searching. And yet, in this small moment he felt a rare sense of hope. They were not just a medic and a dragon child. They were allies, sharing a bond that bridged two species, two worlds torn apart by conflict. When Laura returned later that morning, Ethan updated her quietly. She listened intently, her expression a mix of concern and admiration. "Keep doing what you're doing," she said. "For now, keep him safe, keep him calm. The rest we will handle." Ethan nodded, looking down at Sorin, who had curled up again, his breathing steady. The bond between them had strengthened overnight, and Ethan knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together. For this small child, this fragile creature, Ethan was willing to take any risk. And in that quiet room, the world outside seemed a little less harsh, if only for a moment. Part 6. The afternoon sun streamed through the small windows of the field station, casting soft light on Ethan Cole and Sorin, the young dragon child. Ethan had been sitting beside the little creature for hours, keeping watch, speaking gently, and making sure he remained calm. Sorin's breathing was steady, and his eyes, golden and bright, seemed a little less fearful than before. Ethan reached for a small towel and dampened it with clean water. He carefully wiped the dirt and dried blood from Sorin's tiny wings and face. The dragon flinched at first but then relaxed into Ethan's touch. It was a small victory, a sign that trust was growing between them. "Do you understand me, Sorin?" Ethan asked softly. The dragon blinked slowly, then gave a small nod. "Good," Ethan said. "I'm Ethan, and you're safe here with me." Sorin tilted his head, eyes filled with curiosity. Then, in a small, trembling voice, he spoke. "Where am I?" "You're in a human field station," Ethan replied gently. "You're safe. I won't let anyone hurt you." The dragon lowered his head, golden eyes glimmering with sadness. "I lost my family," he whispered. Ethan felt a pang in his chest. The war had stolen many lives, human and dragon alike, and now this small child had suffered alone. I'm sorry, Sorin, but you're not alone anymore. I'll help you. Sorin looked up at Ethan, a flicker of trust in his eyes. Help me? Yes, Ethan said firmly. We'll make sure you're safe, we'll find food, and one day, maybe even your family. The dragon child's wings twitched slightly as he shifted closer to Ethan, seeking comfort. Ethan placed a gentle hand near Sorin's shoulder, not touching too much, just enough to show reassurance. We have to be careful, Ethan continued. If other humans or the Drake clans see you, they might want to take you away. But for now, here, it's safe. Sorin nodded slightly, golden eyes softening. He looked around the room, taking in the strange human surroundings and the kind, weary face of Ethan. For hours, they stayed like that, speaking softly. Ethan told simple stories about humans, the world beyond the battlefield, and moments of quiet peace he had remembered. Sorin listened, his breathing steady, his trust growing. Outside, the wind carried the distant sounds of battle, but inside, a fragile sense of calm prevailed. Ethan realized that this bond, formed between human and dragon, was rare and extraordinary. He knew dangers were still coming. Command might try to take Sorin, enemies might arrive. But for now, the little moments of trust and understanding mattered more. They were both tired, both scarred by war in different ways, but together, they had found a fragile connection that gave them strength. And as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Ethan quietly whispered to Sorin, "We'll get through this. Together. I promise." Part 7. Rumors about the dragon child spread faster than anyone could control. Whispers among the soldiers reached other units nearby, and soon news of Sorin being able to speak human language reached higher command. Different groups reacted in various ways. Some wanted to study the child, others wanted to use him as a bargaining tool, and a few saw him as a threat that should be removed to prevent any future complications. Ethan Cole felt the tension immediately. He stayed close to Sorin, ensuring the child remained calm. Every time a soldier or visitor glanced in the direction of the small dragon, Ethan positioned himself between them and Sorin, a protective barrier. "I won't let anyone hurt you," Ethan whispered, holding the child's tiny claw gently in his hand. Sorin blinked up at him, trust evident in his eyes. "Thank you, Ethan," he said softly, his voice still fragile but more confident than before. Captain Laura Briggs tried her best to keep the situation under control. She delayed reports and minimized information as much as she could, but pressure from higher command increased daily. They demanded updates, they asked for inspection, and rumors of a talking dragon child were too exciting to ignore. "Cole," Laura warned one afternoon, "we can't hide this forever. Command will want to decide what happens with him, and they might not agree with your approach." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I don't care what they want. I'm not letting anyone harm him." Laura looked at him, understanding his resolve but worried about the consequences. "We'll figure it out together. But we need a plan in case someone tries to take him by force." The war outside rumbled on, distant explosions and the cries of the injured echoing in the background. Inside the field station, Ethan and Sorin formed a small world of safety, trust, and care. Sorin, for his part, began to speak more often. Simple words, questions about the humans around him, about safety, about his lost family. Ethan answered each one patiently, gently guiding the child, providing comfort and reassurance. Outside the station, scouts reported unusual activity. Ethan and Laura realized that they were being watched. Some of the Drake clans might be searching for Sorin, or perhaps other human units had caught wind of the child. "We need to be ready," Laura said, her voice low but firm. "They may come for him." Ethan tightened his grip on Sorin's claw. "I'm ready. I'll protect him, no matter what." Sorin looked at Ethan, golden eyes wide and trusting. "You stay?" Ethan nodded. "Always. I'm not going anywhere." Days passed with careful vigilance. Ethan made sure Sorin was fed, rested, and comfortable. Laura coordinated with her officers, keeping any outsiders away from the room. The bond between Ethan and Sorin grew stronger, a human and a dragon child connected in trust and mutual care. And though danger loomed on the horizon, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. They had each other, and for now, that was enough to face whatever came next. Their bond, fragile yet powerful, was a quiet rebellion against a world torn apart by war. Part 8. That evening, the field station was quiet, though the distant echoes of war continued outside. Ethan Cole sat beside Sorin, watching the young dragon child as he slept under a carefully arranged blanket. The bond between them had grown stronger each day, a fragile connection amidst chaos and destruction. Suddenly, alarms rang through the station. The sharp sound made Ethan's heart race. Soldiers scrambled to their positions, and Ethan instinctively placed himself between Sorin and the approaching threat. Outside, shadows moved, dragons. Not a large army, but a small group, cautious yet purposeful. Everyone prepared for confrontation, weapons ready, but Ethan refused to let Sorin be moved or frightened. He held the child close, whispering, "It's okay. Stay calm. I'm here." Captain Laura Briggs stepped outside to meet the approaching dragons. They circled cautiously, observing, communicating in low, guttural sounds. After tense moments, one of the dragons stepped forward and spoke in a deep, resonant voice that resonated through the station. "We seek the lost hatchling," the envoy said. Ethan's eyes widened. This was Sorin's family, or at least guardians of his kind. Carefully, Ethan carried Sorin outside, holding him securely. The child cried out softly at the sight of the dragons, then relaxed when he recognized them. "They are my kin," he whispered to Ethan, voice trembling with relief. The dragon envoy bowed slightly. "You saved him. We are in your debt." Ethan felt a wave of relief and a warmth in his chest. He looked down at Sorin, who nuzzled gently against him before the dragons lifted him carefully. "Thank you, Ethan, my friend," Sorin said softly, clinging briefly before letting go. Ethan nodded, his heart full. The dragons departed, carrying Sorin safely away. Ethan watched until the silhouettes disappeared against the dimming sky. For a moment, he felt the weight of the world lift slightly, the exhaustion, fear, and sorrow softened by this one act of hope. Captain Laura Briggs approached, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You did well. He's safe because of you." Ethan nodded quietly. "It doesn't end the war, but it changes something. Even if it's small, something good happened." The field station remained, battered and weary, but within its walls, a bond had proven that fear could transform into trust, and understanding could bridge worlds torn apart by conflict. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan felt a quiet sense of hope. He had faced war, fear, and uncertainty, but he had also witnessed something extraordinary. A child, a dragon, speaking, trusting, and surviving because of the care of one human medic. And in that moment, Ethan knew that even in a broken world, small acts of kindness could shine brighter than any weapon or victory, leaving a mark that neither time nor war could erase.